Okay, my psychiatrist yesterday told me to try EMDR, which I really appreciated because I am so fucking sick of people telling me to do talk therapy. Babes, you don't think I've tried that already? You don't think I've tried that several times? That's next on my to-do list to find a person that does EMDR therapy. But on that note, we're going to talk about moving the fuck on. Okay. This is a topic that has been coming up a lot in my life um, from several people. And I feel called to talk about it because I recently moved out of my mom's apartment. And it's a very complicated thing to explain for me because to say that sounds like I'm saying that I had this wonderful living experience and I finally branched out and like moved out. No. I hope that this reaches the audience of people that have very complicated, complex feelings towards their parents and caretakers and family members and people that they're blood related to. I'm 22 years old right now. And I have been wanting to leave home. Can't even call that feels wrong. Um, I can't even say the care of my mother either because that's not even what it feels like. I have been wanting to leave and move on since I was 18. And I think I've always had a pretty good sense of when situations are not healthy because I remember when I was in middle school, I thought to myself, I could not attend high school in the Bronx. And that was solely based on my observation of 1 year living in New York, living in the United States. I knew that I needed to branch out. So when I was a teenager and when the older I got, I was like, I need to leave. I need to leave. I need to leave. But between the age of 18 and the age of 22, I also wanted to prioritize making smart financial decisions, which I didn't do technically, but I do want to talk about the reasons why I stayed for so long, the reasons why I decided to leave, maybe some parts about why my situation has been so complicated, um, and hope that it inspires someone to finally move on with their lives because it's okay to do better. It's okay to give up sometimes. I think it takes a lot of humility to recognize when a situation is just above you. It took me years to finally say, this is hurting me more than it is helping me. Why I stayed. And I think that the umbrella term that I want to use is just trauma. And then underneath that, I want to cover convenience, but also the crave to fix everything that was wrong. Living with my mother meant that I was able to save up money, of course. Not entirely, because in the last year that I was living with her, it was actually a disagreement that I would pay half the rent because the one room in her apartment was being rented out. The person that was there moved out and she gave it to me to rent out. So I was paying half the rent. Now, the reason this was so convenient and the reason why I decided to do that instead of going and getting a roommate and paying about the same amount, if not a little more, was because this room was huge. Now, up until this point, I really never had a stable living situation in which I owned the entire space with a door. Like I've never had my own room for more than like a month. Um so when I was presented the idea that I would have this huge room. Now, I don't know if any of you have seen like New York City rooms and apartments, they're tiny. This room could probably fit two regular New York City rooms. And I thought that to be like, oh my gosh, I could probably use the space to like work on art and do all these fun things and dance and like just have my own space, right? And that was my dream. Like that's what I wanted to do. And it felt right to do it at a price that wouldn't hurt my pockets because I know myself and I'm not a person that's gonna hustle. I've tried that. I am autistic as shit. I've tried that. I burnt myself out several times. And that's something that I've just for myself, I've accepted that this is not something that I can do. It's just like it's not sustainable for me. I'm gonna burn out. Like, she would handle the cooking. Most of the time, like she would pay for the groceries because she had like food stamps, and sometimes I would go get it. And like I was able to help out with racing my brother because she's not doing any of the racing. And so it was all these things that felt convenient. They felt right. On top of the fact that I felt like since I already experienced and witnessed that she is not capable of mending our relationship because it has never been good, that maybe in my presence, I would be responsible and I would be capable of doing that. Maybe in us living together, but not in a parent daughter relationship directly, maybe that would make our situation better in the long run. Have known for a while now that I am not a person that's going to thrive in New York, which means that as soon as I decide that I'm going to leave, I'm not coming back. And I wanted to make sure that I left feeling in a good place with her emotionally, relationship wise. Like, can I talk to you? Can we have conversations when I finally leave this state and you won't see me? Will I want to come back to visit you? Can we get to a point where we have a healthy relationship in which we can interact with one another? And what's really complex about that is that usually when people talk about their bad relationships with their moms, it's like they argue a lot or it's abusive. Um, but I'm talking about a person that isn't even concerned with who you are. I have never felt like she has an interest or curiosity to get to know me. And I just felt like maybe that would change. Maybe my by me being there, it would change or my feelings about it would change. Another aspect of our relationship was that she tends to pull the rug from underneath my feet at very inconvenient times with absolutely no remorse or accountability. For example, when I first got the room and I finally had this, I have a key now. You know, I pay rent. I decided that I was gonna date somebody for a little bit, and while I was dating this person, I spent a lot of time with them. I spent a lot of time in their space. Part of the reason why I spend so much time in other people's spaces is because I don't like to be in my own when it came to sharing it with her. In her attempts of finding out where I was residing all of those times that I would leave the house and me not telling her because I have a problem with you being in my business when you're not actually concerned with my business. In her attempt to manipulate this information out of me, she texted me and said, since you are not here, I'm going to rent your room out. Just letting you know. This was like a month after I finally got the room. Like I had been waiting for the other person to move out. Like it was a tough time of me living in this woman's kitchen. Like she saw me cry several times about me not having a space that I could actually put my things in and not have to live outside of out of boxes. And that's what she said to me. And I really I took that to heart. I did because I don't even want to explain. I took that to heart. And it was less about being hurt and more about being afraid of what she's capable of. When I spoke to her about it, when I tried to speak to her about it and try to explain to her that she basically threatens me, she somehow found a way to gaslight me. And this was a month in, but still convenience, finances. Fast forward, um, something similar happens again. The reason I use trauma as the umbrella term for this specific complex whatever is because a trauma that I have, or a belief, or I don't know, something somewhere in there that I have is that when I was a teenager, I would always wonder why my mother would refuse to spend money on me, but also be very willing to spend money on other people. She was not concerned with the things that I wanted. If I would have asked for books, for sketchbooks, for coloring pencils, for markers, for clothes, for money for a trip, it was really hard. It was really difficult if I even got it in the first place. And it wasn't like I know some kids are allowed to beg until the parents. I was not allowed to do that. I did not have the space to do that. But I did see her be willing to contribute to other people's lives, just not mine. Eventually I got over that and I accepted it and I was just like, you know what, bitch, it is what it is. Like I set myself up financially where I will never have to ask her for money. Even when I was a teenager, I would get jobs and little internships, teenager, because I was like, I cannot ask my mother for money. That's not gonna work. Recently, in my attempt to bring my mother into life because she has not experienced much of it, intentionally, in my attempt to do that, I decided to plan a trip, including her, my little brother, and his friend, because otherwise he would not have joined. And I told them, hey, I have been wanting to go on this trip since middle school. Please do not ruin it for me. Y'all don't have to come, but if y'all are not gonna come, please let me know because I really need to do this and I need to enjoy this and I don't need y'all ruining it. Ruining it? Anyway, so I gave them time to decide not to come. I gave them time to change their minds. I finally booked the flights and I booked the room and it was non-refundable because I could not afford for it to be refundable. I really wanted to make it budget friendly because she was going to pay like part of it. She was going to pay her parts. So I wanted to make it as budget friendly cuz else she would not have gone. So everything was non-refundable. She then was complaining about money and she was like, I actually, right after I booked the hotel, I actually don't know cuz like, cuz like I don't have blah, blah, blah. But then in that same conversation, she started talking to me about how my father sent her child support money. I was like, I didn't even know he was sending her money. And then I was just like, I think my teenage self needs this. And I went ahead and had the fucking audacity to ask her how she doesn't have money. Like, what does she do with her money? I was like, I pay half the rent. You technically don't pay for food. You don't go shopping. You don't buy anything for your son or for your daughter. Everything you get, other people are buying for you. What are you doing with your money? I have never seen someone get more defensive quicker my whole life. And I wasn't surprised, but the next day she decided to tell me that she wasn't going on the trip. And then neither was my brother. And obviously neither was his friend. And of course, I was livid, but also I felt very freed. One, I didn't want I if that's the attitude y'all gonna bring to the trip, don't come. And two, I felt this like freedom in my spirit that I finally said, fuck that. I will never count on you for shit. I immediately, that same week, started buying my own groceries, started making my own meals. Everything that I could take power back from, I did. Every little thing that I was doing for convenience, gone. Every little decision that I had made because I wanted to save money, fuck that. I got the money, I'll spend it. I'll get it back. The amount of times that I have spent money with the fear that I'll run out, I get that shit back. I don't know if that belief in itself helps. I'm pretty sure it does, but like I will get that bitch back. And if me doing this, spending the money that I need to spend on myself, because one of her manipulation tactics were, well, what are you doing with your money? Like you're not paying for groceries, you're not doing X, Y, and Z, and like what are you doing with your money? You don't see how hard I work. Okay, girl. um, so I said, fuck that. I need to take full control over my life. I didn't even like the meals that she was cooking. They were so unhealthy. I want to eat salads and shit. You want to eat fried food every night because you don't want to cook. You can keep it. You can keep it. Um, in that moment, it just really lit a fire in me. It truly did. And that fire did not die the fuck down because when I went on the trip and came back, I realized that I needed to get the fuck out one way or another. And it wasn't so much about her as it was about the cycles that the patterns that I realized that I had with my own life, with handling my life. I realized that a lot of the things that I had been doing at that point were like circling around my relationship with her subconsciously. Like my mental state depended on her subconsciously. I realized that a lot of the decisions that I made were triggered by my relationship with her, by her triggers. Every time that I felt like I was in the trenches, it was because something she said, or something she did, or something she didn't say, or something she didn't do, or a memory of her, or a trigger of a memory of her. And I was just like, this one person cannot have this much control over my life. It's my life. I looked around and I realized that absolutely nobody in my life wanted had anything that I wanted in mind. I want absolutely no parts in the things that my mother has chosen to do with her life. I want absolutely no parts in the things that her family members, the people that she surrounds herself with and associates herself with and allows herself to be influenced by. I want no parts in any of the decisions that they have made about their lives. I started to see that if I continued in this space, there was nowhere else to go but down because I have already tried the convenience route. I already tried that and I didn't go anywhere. I realized that every time I felt like I was having a little, like I was growing a little bit, it was when I was away from her. I realized that every time I started to feel good about my life and every time I started to feel a little bit more at peace and my mental health was getting better, she wasn't in my life. I started to, this actually, I don't even know when this started, it never ended. I absolutely hated the idea of sharing a home with her, even as a roommate. I did not like living with her. I hated the way that she would organize things. I hated her habits. I hate the way she interacts with people. I hate the way she interacts with herself. I cannot stand the way she mothers. I cannot stand her lack of growth. I can't stand how egotistical she is. I couldn't stand the lack of self awareness that she portrays. And I couldn't stand the fact that those were not deal breakers before. I couldn't fathom the idea that it never occurred to me that in order for me to grow out of these things that she was like sparking up in me, I had to get the fuck out of her aura. I had to get out of her atmosphere because it was her atmosphere. And it kept, and every time I would talk to people about it, they would be like, you just have to create a bubble where like you protect yourself. And it's like, yeah, sure, that's true. You know, it wasn't so much that I was like letting her get to me. It was like I just didn't want to be around her anymore. I couldn't I couldn't imagine myself I couldn't imagine my life being better if I continued being in her space and being reminded of like the worst case scenario for me and like the things that I have gone through. And I hated my life. I hated it. I hated my routines. I hated them. They would piss me off. I hated the fact that I would walk outside and everyone on the block knew that I was her daughter and expected me to be a certain, and I could just tell that they expected me to be a certain way. I hated that she never cared to build a relationship with me and that I was still craving that and that I'm not anymore. Because when you really start to see someone as a person, just a person, and you are able to recognize that you don't like this person, that's all there is to it. Now, I'm very privileged in being able to say that I have taken so many steps to be financially in a space where I can do things kind of in a chaotic manner. I did these things because it was very important to me that I didn't feel like I had to slave myself in order to stay afloat. And I'm very grateful to say that. I'm very aware of the fact that that can change. That can change. But I'm very grateful that up to now, I have had an escape plan. If anyone is wondering at all, escape plan is something that you may want to consider. If you have related to anything that I've said today, maybe consider creating an escape plan. Um, if you didn't know this, your emergency fund, or if you're gonna like create a plan to escape, you should save up at least I want to say at least 6 months of excuse me expenses. But like don't plan out like rich expenses. I mean like plan out like bare minimum like housing and food. All right. Don't start putting fucking shopping in there. Like learn how to first figure out why it is that you need to spend $300 a month to shop. Like maybe you don't need to do that. I have become so keenly aware of life and the needed necessary aspects of life. Necessary aspects of life are nutrition and shelter. And then on top of that, a safe space to do those things. I was not in a safe space to be sheltered. Even though I had the big ass space that I had, I still didn't feel comfortable with sitting down and reading. I didn't feel comfortable with sitting down and drawing. I didn't feel comfortable with painting. I didn't feel comfortable doing anything because at every point I was afraid for my life that she would come and knock on my door. And it wasn't because she was going to come in and say something rude. It was because she was going to come in and be in my space. And her being in my space was triggering me enough. And if that is something that you relate to, I don't give a fuck how cheap it is. Your mental health, your life, your literal quality of life is worth more than any dollar. I have had so many chances and opportunities to move out, and I always chose to save money. I chose to give it another go. I chose that it wasn't that bad. And I think partially it was because I wasn't exposed to just how good it could be. I think that going to LA, which is the trip that she ended up canceling on, going to LA and realizing that I would love a life away from the misery that I was experiencing really put it into perspective for me that I am not at my I wasn't at the best state of mind to think of ways to grow, think of ways to heal. I was afraid of working out. I was afraid to go for a walk and then come back. I was afraid for her to perceive me. I've only been out for a month and I already feel the differences even in the way that my body looks. Like it's just more relaxed. Like I feel like I lost weight already. The icing on the cake that made me really decide to do this, which is so shameful to speak. Like every time I say this, I quite literally want to cry. But I have done so much crying already. Let's just say that she made some terrible political decisions. And it's not because she is educated and decided to do this. It is because someone else told her to do it. Solely because. Solely because. Literally just because. I know that. I don't need to inquire. Unfortunately, I don't need to inquire. That right there was enough for me to say I cannot be around you. I cannot share a space with someone who operates like that, who makes such crazy, huge decisions based on what the preference of another person that doesn't care about you. Girl, whatever you got going on, I don't want to be around it. I think we need to start taking people like I think we need to start analyzing people's characters a little more. Like not even just character, but like when people do fuck shit, like really get to the bottom of what the fuck is going on. And sorry that like this is how I talk on a regular basis. But if you are willing to do that with absolutely no information, I'm worried about what else you can do. Again, what else are you capable of? Get away from me. Get away from me. Get away from me. I'm afraid. No, no. I don't like being around people that I don't trust. And there are so many things that when people do these things, I'm like, I don't trust you. Immediately when I think I don't trust you, you gotta go. I gotta go. One of us gotta go. I had to go. I moved out not even a week after election day. Election day was Tuesday. I moved out Monday. I found the room that I moved into Friday. I moved quick, literally. I moved quick. I don't think. that your peace of mind, because your peace of mind is also your peace in general, like your peace of mind, body, soul, peace, mind, those three are connected. Those are so much more valuable than some money. You can get that money back, girl. I'm not saying go broke. I'm just saying save up a little bread, make some good moving decisions, like find a room that's in your budget that you can actually afford. Because when you're paying for rent, you're not just paying for the room and the like the rent, you're also paying for the space you're in, not just physically. Follow me here. I'm not just paying $800 to live here. I'm paying $800 to keep my sanity. I'm paying $800 to see myself happy, to have the space in my mind to start considering careers and life paths, happiness, compassion, healing, instead of paying 600 or it being free because that's what I was going to do so that I can attend school, to fucking hate myself and borderline consider suicide. I think one thing is more expensive than the other. I think that if I'm willing to give up my life to not appease capitalism, and this is where the trauma comes from, the other aspect of it. Convenience can only take you so far. What are you afraid of? I was deadly afraid of the idea that I would go broke if I moved out, that like something would go terribly wrong, that I would fail, that I would go so broke that I would end up in a shelter and like just end up on the streets and not figure it out. But you know what, dude? Like I have figured it out time and time again. And I don't see myself as the kind of person that would go see myself go downhill and not stop it before it gets too bad. Like I have never gone downhill to the point where I'm looking around and everything's fucked up. I have enough trust in myself that I will be okay. And I know it's hard for people that have been traumatized and that have some issues with their nervous system, or like their nervous system is a little out of whack because of these experiences, to recognize that you are safe within yourself. It's okay to trust yourself. It's okay to do better than the people that came before you. It's okay to not have it all figured out, but it is not okay to sacrifice yourself to feel like you have something figured out. I kept going in this cycle of ruin and like driving myself insane. And I kept feeling like I was in the same place over and over and over and over. I felt so stagnant, but I wasn't stagnant. I was just in a place where I wasn't thriving, a place that I was trying to mold into something that would help me thrive, but I cannot force people to love me or care about me or be compassionate towards me. It's funny because while I was looking for the room to move to, she called me. And to give even more context, and I like getting into my business. I like telling people my business, but which is something that people tell me not to do. But fuck y'all. I actually don't even want to get into this. Long story short, though, over the phone, she started yelling at me because she is under the impression that I'm being a bum, and that I'm in my room every single day, not working and like not getting a job and like not doing anything with my life. And she was like, "You got to stop staring at yourself in the mirror and stop doing your makeup and go get a job." Girl, I have two jobs. What the fuck are you talking about? Now again, I like having people in my business except for her. because it's conversations like that that I don't trust you. I don't trust you with my business. So, does she know that I have two jobs? No. You don't want people in your life that you cannot trust with. And if someone sees you resting and someone thinks that you are not doing well to the point where you are in your room depressed, because that is what it looked. I think I was in a depressive episode at that time. And if someone sees you like you look like you're struggling and what they decide to do is scold you and tell you to stop obsessing over yourself in the mirror and go get a job, they might not like you. They might not be interested in your well-being because girl, you could have asked me if I was okay. You could have asked me like I've been diagnosed with depression so many times and she knows like girl, you could have asked how I was doing. Like you could have inquired about my state of mind. You could have inquired about what I plan to do. You could have inquired about what I'm doing. But no, that's not what happened. And I realized that I think I don't want to be around someone like that. Yeah. Yeah. And as long as I was living with someone like that, I wasn't going to see heaven. So, I don't wish that on you, bestie, and I hope that you make good decisions for your wellness. I do. And I love you so much. And I hope you're accepting all the love because it's one of my affirmations right now. Um yeah, y'all like it's okay to care about yourself. And it's okay to spend money while doing it. We don't all have to save up every dollar. Invest in your peace, bestie. And I'll see you soon because I love you. Bye.